Welcome back, guys, to Coptic Spirit. I'm here with Mina, and we're joined together with Abuna. Joshua, how are you, Abuna?
I'm well, thank God.
How was your day today?
I should say busy.
The topic today
How
is
fitting.
busyness. So, yeah, let's just get into it.
So we'll get to know you first. How long have you been serving as a priest?
I was ordained in 2011, November 2011. So this year I complete 15 years
Oh wow,
in priesthood.
nice.
Mm.
What's one thing that's like big that you could, you've learned as a priest that you could pass on to everyone? What's your piece of advice?
Piece of advice.
Yeah, like what, all that 15 years. What's the one constant actually?
The one constant is that you are always learning and you are always experiencing the work of God and how He can still manage to use each of us, no matter how weak or how inadequate or how lazy we may be in our lives.
That's very nice. Very, very nice.
And do you have a favorite saint that maybe ties into that?
One of my favorite saints, and I'm really happy that we're recording today, is actually Pope Carolus. Pope Carolus, and I think a testament to him is we actually had a liturgy, especially today, for Pope Carolus, because today is his feast day, and the church was full, to show how alive he still is and how involved he is in our lives. And how close he can be to each and every single one of us. So I love Pope Carolus. Obviously, Saint Cosman and Damian. We've developed a beautiful relationship over the last 13 or so years. They're amazing. One of the amazing things about Cosman and Damian is that they're both doctors. So I've had the blessing to witness a number of miraculous operations, I could say, that they performed, because the doctors would come out and say there was something different. Someone else was there. Someone else did the operation. And thanks be to God, they are beautiful and they're very kind. And this is their church.
That's beautiful, Abuna. And how busy is the life of a priest, Abuna, and what does a normal week look like?
How busy is the life of a priest? I like the quote. You probably met Father Anthony, yes?
Yeah, in our last podcast.
He's dead, but the original.
We heard the story.
Father Shenouda Mansour. I remember as a young man, I used to serve in the youth meeting. I used to serve at St. Anthony's with Abuna Shenouda for a very long time. And one thing that always stuck in my memory, that every time I used to call him, "How are you going, Abuna?" Never a dull moment. Never a dull moment. Now when he calls me, I say to him, "Abuna, now I totally understand what you used to say when you used to say to me, never a dull moment." There's definitely never a dull moment as a priest. Every day brings its blessings, brings its challenges, and obviously has its requirements. As I could say, that there are certain things as a priest you need to be able to do, and you must do, to maintain your own spiritual life first, because a cup that is empty can't really fill anyone else. And it's a matter of juggling and balancing all of the things that kind of do bombard Abuna every day.
That's fair enough. So time management.
I'm not very good at time management, but there has to be, I think, certain things that are fixed in your day that you can't change.
Fair enough.
Unfortunately, there are things that we sometimes probably lack in on account of other things. But it's a matter of being able to balance, and it's a matter of being able to do the right thing by everyone. Most priests tend to do the wrong thing by their families. I'm definitely a culprit of that one. And you grow up and they grow up, and you look and you think, where has the time gone? But thank God gives grace and He covers us for everything that we lack in.
Thank God. Well, speaking of families, what do you actually like to do when you get any free time?
Well, once upon a time, I used to love actually reading in my free time. I do love to read, and I try to read as much as possible. But at the moment, I search for free time to spend it with my granddaughter. So Anastasia, at the moment, she is the star of my life, and everybody at home doesn't like the fact that I melt when I see her. But yeah, so whenever there's free time, I try and find out where she is, or call Naomi and say, please, if she's free, bring her around. And that's what I was doing before coming here today.
Looks like you picked a favorite, Abuna.
I think definitely a favorite. I don't know. She has these eyes that just make you melt. And I don't know, I just melt. So I look for any excuse to spend time with her.
That's beautiful, Abuna. Oh, since the topic's obviously about busyness, what is busyness? And can it be a bad or a good thing?
It can be both. Yes, business is being busy. It's not having any spare time, I guess, or having many things on at the same time. They can all be different ways of looking at busyness. I personally, this advice is given to me by my own confession father, is to always keep busy. So keeping busy is important. One of the things I always say to the youth is idle time is sin time. And we can see that. We can see that through the life of St. Anthony. In the life of St. Anthony in his early years of monastic life was really, really struggling. And this is why the angel appeared to him and showed him to sit and work with his hands, so that he's not just dedicating his life just for prayer, or there's no idle time. He'd actually work while he's praying, and then take the work, sell it, and use that money to help the poor. So idle time is dangerous. Having time where you don't do anything, it always translates into sin time. Therefore, being busy is important. However, the other side to being busy is being too busy, or being busy with the wrong things, can definitely be very destructive to our spiritual life and very destructive to a person. And I think earlier I was saying how the life of a priest can be never a dull moment, and how there's certain things that must be fixed. There are certain fixed things that can't be replaced. And it's good to be busy, but not to be distracted away from why we're here. And we're not here to build empires, or have families, or be successful at work, because sometimes these become this is what takes priority. And as younger people these days, it's all about and if I'm going to make him my choice, then there must be some sort of a priority system in my life as to what comes first. And God likes to come first. God always wants to be first. And this is why first thing we need to do when we, start our day, is to start it with God, with a prayer. And therefore there must be certain things fixated in my schedule, and they're fixed. And then add everything else. And if you can manage to do that, that is a good life of being busy. A bad life of busy is I'm doing everything but not doing my spiritual work, not praying, not reading my Bible, not spending any time alone, not spending any time contemplating, not spending any time even accounting with myself. What is it that I've achieved today, or what is it that I've really let God down in today? Very, very important to have a busy life, but an organized busy life.
Mm. Well, Buna, it's easier said than done, obviously. So for me, I go to work. I work from the morning 5 o'clock all the way 3:30, and then I go and I study. And then when I'm not studying, I have service. So do you think for youth it's very, very dangerous to have that sort of life, and then you come home and only like, obviously during the day you're praying and you're trying to do stuff, but then you come home, you have the only that small amount of time before you sleep and have to restart again.
Look, it is dangerous in a sense, and the danger is when we get our priorities wrong. I remember there's a talk by His Grace Bishop Yusuf from Saskopts, which sticks in my head all the time, where he speaks about how we set priorities in our life. And he says we're very, very good at getting the first and the last correct. What's the first? Very urgent and very important. Things that are very urgent and very important, we always get them right. We know how to get them right. You know, having a heart attack, I'm not going to wait for anything. It's urgent. It's also important. My heart is important. I'm going to go straight to emergency. I'm not going to allow anything to distract you from it. And the things that are not important and are not urgent, we're very, very good at also getting that right. The ones we always confuse are the things that are urgent but not important, and the things that are important but not urgent. Urgent and not important is a simple example is your phone ringing while you're praying. The ring is urgent. You've got 30 seconds to pick up that call. If you don't pick it up, you're going to miss the call. Is the call important? Probably not, because prayer is definitely more important. But what we tend to do is actually, unfortunately, pick up the phone. So we've actually got it wrong. And that becomes the problem is when, yes, there may be a lot of things in my life that are urgent, but are they important, or are they as important as my own spiritual life? And this is where it requires me to be forceful with myself. There's a beautiful verse that says, the kingdom of heaven is taken by force. It means there must be force. You're not going to wake up one day and realize, oh, I really want to pray. It doesn't happen that way. There needs to be force. And that force needs to be that, in the same way I schedule my alarm to wake me up at, I'm one of those people that likes to put 6:13 or 6:12, at 6:12. No, I'm going to make it 6:05 so I can have 7 minutes where I can pray my morning prayer first and then do whatever else needs to happen. And yes, morning prayer can take 7 minutes or 8 minutes. It doesn't. Sometimes we make it sound like it's a lot, but it's just setting that time aside for God. So yes, you can set that time and then start your day, and you'll be surprised of how blessed your day is going to be because you've started it with God and how He blesses the rest of the day. You find that your work, you achieve more in your work, you do more at work. And then when you come back from work, yes, you've got uni and you need to study, but try and pray before you start your uni day as such. If I can get that schedule right, and I always say to people, try and tie these things to things that are fixed in your life. You wake up every day, that's fixed. It's a fixed prayer next to it. You eat every day, that's another good fixed spot in your life. Try and fix your gospel reading to it. Before you eat, you're going to read your gospel, or fix it to things that are fixed in your life, so that it becomes a routine in your life that is fixed, and that's what you're going to do. Then you're going to get to everything else.
Abuna, do you think the struggle is like a bit more difficult for our generation? Because I feel like older generations, for example, they're not as tied in or plugged in with like phones, notifications, social media. It feels like we have a bit more variety to pick from to waste time, or, we have phones and notifications
They're
alone.
distracting us, and I'm trying to turn mine off.
No, that's okay. But they really they feel infinite. They feel like we have all the knowledge in the world at our palm, just sitting there.
Look, we have to understand that Satan is real and Satan exists. And Satan is not just Satan. St. Paul says to us, he describes him that there are legions, okay? And these legions exist. And Satan also is very devious and unfortunately very smart. He's been around for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. To think that today's struggle, is more difficult than yesterday's struggle is probably a little bit what I could say. I don't want to say immature, but a little bit naive. Satan changes with the time. In in the previous generations, he found things that stole their time, and he seeks to take away from you your time. I was saying before, we have time here on earth to prove. So really, a lot of people think the battle is about falling into many other sins, whether it be adultery or fornication or pornography or lying or gossiping. A lot of the time people think that Satan really, that's what he's trying to take from us. No, his aim is to actually take away from us time, because time is that lifeline that we have to be able to enter eternity. So he's been very, very good at taking time away from humanity for the last 2,000 or 3,000 years. The current things that surround us, that's his current method via which he's stealing our time, whether it be the instant notification, the consistent notifications that don't stop, whether it be the social media that now has become a focus and has become a focal point of everybody's life, or whether it be this very, very fast-paced life that is seeking to take more and more of your time, because if you don't, you won't be able to keep up with everybody else, whether it be in a career sense or in a study sense, or even on a social sense. So no, it is definitely, the battle is there, the battle is real, and yes, he is there to take away your time from you, but before he takes your time, he takes your free will. And that's what happens. There's a beautiful feature on the iPhone. You can pick it up and look, and it gives you how many times you've picked up the phone. It scares me sometimes when I see it, when it has a stupid number like 700 times or 800 times. That's how much we keep picking up and checking, And the thing is, we do that now involuntary. We don't even realize that we're doing it that many times. But that is the reality. He's taken away from us the will to be able to separate. And at the end of the day, he uses that tool to take away our time. When that tool can be beneficial, what you guys are doing here is beautiful, and you're using the same tool. I'm sure this podcast is going to be watched through obviously a phone or a tablet. So yes, we can use these same tools for things that are building in our spiritual life. But we have to be careful. And I think this is where the wisdom comes in of how I balance my time and how I balance my usage of these tools that God has placed in this world, or that, Satan may be trying to use in this world to steal from me my time.
Yes, so Abuna, like you said, we're constantly on our phones. Sometimes it's not for like Instagram, social media, but all our work is sometimes all connected through social media or even study. So sometimes you might get sidetracked, click this notification, hit that one. What's some practical tips so we can stay focused and locked in?
I wish I was good at that, because I'm just as bad as you at the moment. I'll be in the middle of writing a message, and then another message comes up, or another phone call, and I totally forget the message I was writing, and people say to me, "Abuna, you didn't get back to us." It is hard. I'm not gonna sit here and say to you it is easy. It is hard. Yes, these tools are in our hand. Yes, these tools unfortunately allow the world into our lives, but we must be able to switch these tools off. So again, being able to say no, being able to set some time where this is when I'm going to pray, this is when I'm going to have time alone, this is when I'm going to have some quiet time, this is when I just have some stillness and just stand in front of God. And sometimes I just need to try that, and for that to happen, that tool must be switched off or left in a different room. But no, it's necessary, and these tools are necessary. They're necessary for your work. They're necessary for your study. They're even necessary for the way we manage the church. At the moment, we have an app that manages our congregation and manages our visitations and manages, birthdays and sending messages, and manages what Sunday school, who's been in attendance and who hasn't been in attendance. That's all. These tools are useful. As St. Paul says, all things are lawful for me, but not all things edify. It's how do I use these tools to edify my life?
Sweet Abuna.
That's fair enough. So you're basically saying run away from it, just like I guess Joseph did.
Manage it.
Okay.
I wish I could run away from it.
I mean, you
I
can't.
haven't
We
tried
can.
that. You probably can, but no, I don't think that we definitely run away from sin. But in this circumstance, it's a matter of managing, having limits. I have a lot of my confession sons and daughters. I say to them, there's a beautiful thing called screen time on these phones. Sorry, I'm an iPhone person. I'm sure there's an equivalent
Don't worry,
on the
us too.
Androids, but I tend to be a little bit Android illiterate. But on the iPhone, there's this thing that's called screen time. Allow an amount of screen time for your Instagram. Allow a certain amount of time for your emails. Put some limits. And then it actually turns it off and it tells you you've actually already utilized the half an hour. Look at the things. I always say to people, although I don't like people praying from their phone, I really love for people to have their own Agpeya at home. The reality is when you're on the move, the Agpeya is available on your phone. Compare how much time are you spending on Coptic Reader versus your Agpeya app versus Instagram. And that it tells you that. It tells you you've spent 4 hours on Instagram, you spent 3 minutes on Coptic Reader. It's a problem. And try and find the balance. I'm not going to say to you 4 hours on your Agpeya. I wish that would be definitely a dream. But no, have a balance. And again, sit with your confession father and set what is it that you're going to do? What is your spiritual rule? And, for a lot of people, I say to them, make sure you finish your spiritual rule. Then you can open your social media apps and make that as an entrance into the social media. For me to open my social media app, I need to have finished my readings. I need to have listened to at least a sermon. I need to have prayed my Agpeya, then jump onto the social media. They are important, like you said. Yes.
So Abuna, Christ, he had a big mission. He came here, he went around, he served all the people, but he didn't burn out and he went into pray, which is also why we're in Lent. So do you think it's necessary for us to constantly, maybe like say once a month or every 2 weeks, to go into a spiritual retreat? Or
I think it's important daily. That 20 minutes or half an hour. There's a beautiful, one of the church fathers has a beautiful saying, sometimes you need to quieten the tongue and the heart will speak. Stand just in front of God and allow your heart to speak. For that to happen, you need some time where you just, I call it, it's my shutdown time. It's my off time. There needs to be, whether it be 10 minutes, 15 minutes, but you must be able to spend that time alone. Other than your Agpeya prayers. It's just that time where you reevaluate, what did my day look like? What have I done today? Where have I failed today? Where have I, made progress? What are the good things I did today and how can I keep doing them? And what are the things that I wish I hadn't done today and what can I do to avoid them? It is very, very important. In the corporate world, in your work world, they tell you to do that, to evaluate and to make changes and evaluate again and make changes. And if you don't reevaluate everything that you're doing, you're never going to improve. Spiritual life is the same. Therefore, you need to reevaluate every day. Spend that quiet time. This is when you sit in front of God and you say to Him, God, okay, I failed in this instant or I failed in this circumstance. Help me not to make that mistake again. Help me not to fall into this sin again. Help me not to get things wrong again. And that is very important. And this is, as these things accumulate, every 4 weeks, every 5 weeks, make a time with your confession father. And this is when, you say to him, Father, I've sinned 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I truly repent and I truly want to see my life continue improving and continue getting closer and closer to Christ.
How do you retreat sometimes when either says go inside to your room, shut the door and pray, but when you go into your room, your brother's there, you go outside, mum's watching TV, and then you go outside and the whole world's busy, maybe you go to church, I don't know, but I say Mark's, we have something on every day, so usually church is pretty busy as well. Where could we go to just retreat for 20 minutes?
And one of the things I love to do is I love to put my AirPods on and just go for a walk. And I usually blast the tasbih on as loud as possible. And for me, that's time alone. And it's just a walk. And that for me works because that also switches my mind off. Sometimes your mind keeps going. There's so much that's going on and you can't help. You're thinking about this problem and you're thinking about this issue and you're thinking about this. And you know, at the moment in my life, there's so many things that I've got this list that I've kind of got to keep ticking and make sure I've done, you know, the requests that I kind of need to fulfill, whether they are administrative tasks or pastoral tasks for the church. And sometimes you actually need that time. You need to switch that off. I find, you know, putting my big AirPods on and just walking in the street with my tasbih on, you know, full blast. So I can't hear the cars. It is a little bit dangerous, yes. Just make sure you're walking on the footpath. But it works for me. Each person will have a way, you know, yes, there is this ideal picture that, yes, I even would love to have. And that usually happens at home after everyone sleeps, which is, it's convenient for me because I'm always late coming home. But if the house is always full, you might not be able to find that corner that has this beautiful icon and a candle in front of it. And you sit and have that prayer corner in your house that's undisturbed. That might be hard. That is ideal. That would be beautiful. If each of us in our rooms can have this small corner that we set up, and that becomes the place where I actually speak to God every day, that is important. But if that is not available and that is not readily possible, that corner doesn't have to be a physical corner. It can be something that I create. It can be this long walk. It can be going to a park and just sitting down on a bench. Going, you know, if St. Mark's, you're not far from the beach. And going there and just going for a short walk along the beach with no one else. That is definitely possible. And that's time with God.
I really like that. I have a friend who only does like, and even me sometimes when I'm like, the house is a bit loud or like I'm sick of my room, I've been here, you know, I guess all day doing work or whatever it is, I just hop in the car and just go for a drive. I mean, the one thing that really changed a lot for me was my confession father told me, hey, remember God's available 24/7. He's not there from like 9 to 5 or 8 to 9 and then it's done for. So what do you say to something like that? Like, are we allowed to... one question that's been on my mind is, for example, Agpeya sometimes, it feels a bit formal. Is it kind of okay to do it in the car sometimes where we're like sitting down just because, you know, it's easier or we get it done?
There's a beautiful saying by Pope Shenouda, I will pray. In Arabic, it rhymes. Hasalli mahma hasalli. In English, it's I will pray no matter what happens to me. I think it's very, very important for us to ensure that we pray. Don't allow Satan to stand in your way and say to you, this prayer is unacceptable or this prayer is unacceptable. There is obviously no replacement for being able to stand in your room alone and praying with your physical Agpeya. For me, that is important and that has to happen. You can't just replace that with the bus, the train, the car. You can't replace it. However, if your circumstances are not allowing you that, instead of not praying at all, yes, pray. I always like to ask people to memorize the prayer. You know, it's memorizing 3 Psalms from the morning prayer, memorizing 3 Psalms from the 12th hour prayer can't be hard. And if you memorize them, the introduction is also very easy. The Gospels can be memorized and litanies can be memorized. Once you've memorized that prayer, you can pray anywhere. You can be standing on the train and praying. You can be anywhere and you can pray your prayer. So that is definitely important. And I personally don't have an issue with that. However, I don't like that the reference that, the Agpeya prayer can be boring. It's not boring. And that is the prescribed prayer. Okay? So there has to be 2 aspects of prayer in my life. The prescribed prayer, the prayer that kind of attunes my heart. It's like, you know, tuning your heart. The same way you tune a guitar or you tune a car, you tune your heart. This is very important. That is my Agpeya prayer. But there needs to be that time that I was talking about where you actually stand in front of God and you talk to him. You know, God, I really am struggling with 1, 2, 3 today. And these thoughts don't seem to leave my mind. What can I do? What is it that I'm not doing enough of? And actually saying to him, I wish you could help me. I wish you could, you know, make this easier for me. This struggle might be too hard for me. And talking to God. And that is your free prayer. you actually speaking with God.
Okay.
It's usually the other way around the Buna, and a lot of people, like, they can pray more freely, and then the Agpeya is a little bit less. But for me, I feel like I've got into the structure where I'm using the Agpeya a lot, but then me speaking to God alone says it's kind of gone down a little bit, and I don't know how to bring that back up.
I think it's important to balance both. Yes. How do I bring that back up? I think seeing God as a friend, as a father, as someone that I can turn to no matter what is going on is very, very important. You know, and I'm going to be a bit sexist here, as males, we're not as good in talking. You know, maybe females have a much better advantage here when it comes to talking, but you must teach yourself to talk. And I was saying, you know, the church father that was saying, just it's not always about talking. Be silent, but allow your heart to talk. Just stand in the presence of God. You'll find that your heart is talking to Him, because whether you like it or not, there are struggles in your life, and you know them. And there's nothing easier than placing these struggles before God. Satan and the world tries to make us always think that we can control things. I'm one of those unfortunate people that tries to control everything, and you know, I want everything done right. And but to learn to let go is very, very important. And to let go means that I need to stand and trust that God can take care of these struggles. And unless you don't have any struggles, then you might find it hard to speak to God. But there are many struggles. But then also there are many gifts that you can be asking for. You're serving a beautiful service. Now, God, give me the gift to make this service and for this service to bring more and more people to you. That's a prayer. You know, speaking to Him about this episode before coming, you know, give me words, give me questions, give me things I could say that, you know, will really touch the hearts of those who are going to be listening to this podcast. That's a prayer. There's so much you can talk to God about. It's a matter of training yourself to open your heart and just let it free in front of God. We tend to guard our thoughts. We tend to guard our hearts. We tend to think too much about the words. And one of the beautiful things, we just finished the prodigal son last Sunday. And one of the things that the prodigal son did is he sat and he rehearsed his prayer. The gospel goes out of its way, showing us that the prodigal son was trying to get the words right. He was rehearsing. I'm going to go to my father. I'm going to say to him, Father, I have sinned before you and before heaven. Take me as one of your hired workers. The reality is that long rehearsed prayer, he only got to say the first three words. Because when you read the other side of the continuation of the gospel, all he said is, Father, I have sinned. And he did not continue, because then the verse interrupts. The father hugged him. The father fell on him. He didn't allow him to continue. We sometimes think too much about words, and we don't think enough about that. You know, God really wants a heart, and just placing that heart before Him, He'll come and hug you, and that hug can go forever.
Yes.
No words. Pretty sure the prodigal son stood there and couldn't say a word. He just enjoyed that beautiful hug by Christ. And that's all you want. And it wasn't just a hug. It was a hug and then a ring and then a feast. That's what God does with us.
That's very nice. How about, you spoke about service there. How about when we get busy doing, I guess, good things, when we're busy with, I don't know, organizing, whether it's admin or actually getting stuff done or getting someone to set up. How do we balance that? How do we make sure that when we're serving faithfully and not just getting caught up in the activity, you know?
Look, it's beautiful to get busy in serving, but it's dangerous when I serve. I'm going to quote one of your quotes from your paper. I might be right, I might be wrong. My memory is not that good, but you know, it's very, very easy to get distracted, you know, serving the service rather than serving Christ, who is from the service. Was that from your paper?
It's something along the line. It's from Pop Shenouda.
Okay.
Yeah.
From Pop Shenouda. What does the quote say?
It says, you have been serving the house of the Lord for a long time, but have you been serving the Lord of the house?
That's right. So are you serving Christ? And I think that the issue with that is the understanding of what happens when I serve. So many people come to the service thinking that they are giving. Okay? And what I mean by they are giving, that this service needs and needs and needs and needs on, I must do and do and do and do because of the service. When in fact, when I serve to take. Service is something for me, not for those whom I'm serving. In serving, I am spiritually building myself. And therefore, service is important for my spiritual life, not for anything else. So if it's important for my spiritual life, it's important for my relationship with God. You know, when I was saying, when you were asking me about, you know, as a priest with your life, I said to you, what use if I'm a priest and I'm an empty cup? I have nothing to give anyone, and I will have nothing. If I don't spend time on me, and if service is not beneficial for me spiritually, then I'm in trouble. And not just me in trouble. My whole church will be in trouble because I'm not taking them where they need to be. But to serve, I'm serving myself. I'm the one that's benefiting. I'm the one that's taking. I'm the one that's building myself. And when I become the priority in the service, then it will be necessary for me to spend time with God. And I'll realize that this is not, the church doesn't need me. I need the church. The service doesn't need me. I need the service. And when I change that thinking and I have this different outlook towards what service is, I'll find that my spirituality always comes first. If I'm spiritually unwell, I will take the advice that Alex was just giving us, and I'll take myself and go and lock myself. Maybe we have a beautiful monastery here. Now, 15 years ago, it's going to be 15. I promised them to spend the week every year in the anniversary, and I haven't done it once. But again, it shows you how useless I am. But it's going to the monastery and spending some time alone so that I can become a source of spirituality to those I'm serving with.
What if the service starts to feel like a chore and not like you're serving faithfully anymore?
Look, I said to you that the kingdom of God is taken by force. All right, there must be a balance, and this is why our church is so great, so beautiful, and so wholesome. We have spiritual guidance. Your spiritual confession father. You need to go sit with him. And one of the most important things that happens during confession is that you must uncover everything. Uncover, open up, show him everything. You're not telling God something God doesn't know. But by uncovering everything, there's no space for Satan to hide. Satan is like a snake, and a snake only likes to run under the bushes. And the only way to get rid of snakes is to clear the bushes. When it's a clear land, snakes don't appear. So to be able to expose your heart and open everything and remove all the debris, remove all the leaves, remove all the broken sticks that are lying everywhere, there's no way for Satan to hide. Expose that in front of your confession father and say to him, this is what's happening in my life. And service feels like a chore. He'll tell you, is it a chore? No, you'll actually benefit. This service is building you, and Satan is playing with you. Therefore, you must persevere. You must continue to struggle. You must carry the cross and follow me. God didn't tell us that the service is just going to be people praising you. The same people that praised him are the same people that said crucify him. Correct?
That's right.
So, there is definitely an aspect of carrying the cross and following Christ. There is a struggle. There's going to be a struggle in my spiritual life. There's going to be a struggle in my service. But I have to keep struggling because I have to carry the cross. I have to follow Christ. And it is that cross that's going to prepare me to enter into the kingdom of heaven. And God will permit a cross that is just the right cross for each of us. Each of us will have a different size cross, but it will be just the right cross for you, the right cross for him, the right cross for me.
What if you ended up taking too much service?
This is where it's important, again, to speak with your confession father, the spiritual, your spiritual guide. Are you serving too much? Or is Satan getting into your head saying to you, you're serving too much? It's very important to always have that consultation with your confession father. This is what I'm doing. And more importantly, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. And this is what I'm trying to achieve. there's sometimes services where I'm not spiritually benefiting. And if you're honest and say to him, I don't feel like I'm spiritually, getting anywhere, your confession father will know you. And he'll know you by the rest of your life. And where I always say to people, our spiritual life goes like that. It's oscillating, but it's oscillating upwards. And he'll know that because and he can see. He's been seeing you for the last, how many years. And he'll see that that's what's happening. Unfortunate that we sometimes keep on chopping and changing confession fathers because we're embarrassed. I'll confess this one with this Abuna, and then I'll continue confessing with this Abuna, and he doesn't know about this sin, so he's going to think that I'm a star. Really, it doesn't matter what Abuna thinks of you because, unless I'm Einstein, I can't remember everybody's sins. There's no way I'm going to remember what everyone sinned and what they said in the previous confession, and I don't remember. But you remember, and Satan definitely remembers, and he'll keep reminding you. So it's important to have a consistent confession father and not to chop and change as I like, because this is a new habit that we see in the youth. It's a new trend. Someone, can I confess, or who do you confess with? I've confessed with this and this and this. It's like, what are you doing? It doesn't work that way. No. And by having this relationship that has been with your confession father, he knows you. And he'll see if the rest of your life is struggling, then there is a problem with your service. And he'll say to you, okay, let's try this. But if your life overall, you're actually following that beautiful graph that we all wish we're going towards. Yes, there'll be downs, but there's ups and downs, and one up will be much higher than, one down will be much higher than the previous up. And he'll say to you, this is, yes, you're serving too much, or no, you're just imagining things, persevere. Or you're trying to run away from the cross that you're carrying, keep carrying it, and ask God to give you, ask God for guidance, and ask God to give you strength to keep doing what you're doing.
I really like that. At first, I used to think it's a bit harsh when priests were like, "Hey, just do it, just fight, just kind of get it done." Like you're saying, it's we steal it, like we force it. Sorry, not steal it. We force it, and it's. I've been told this very, very nice analogy, and they're saying you don't remember what you ate 3 Sundays ago, but it still sustained you. It still gave you that nourishment. Same thing with like our Bible reading and our service. It's like, do you want to eat today? Do you want to be nourished spiritually, or do you want to like leave it to die? It's very, very nice when you combine with what you're saying with it's up and down always. It's very, very nice to think of it as, do you want to move up, or do you want to keep going down, or do you want to flatline? It's very, very nice. That leads into our next point, or our next question. When we do come to, rest spiritually, I guess, or back away from some things, what's that difference between resting and being lazy? What, like spiritually resting and spiritually being lazy, what does that look like?
I don't know if there is such a thing as spiritually resting.
Okay.
I love the analogy you just used, which is an analogy that I like to use a lot, which is our spiritual life is food. We have the food that feeds our stomachs, that feeds our physique, our physical, nature. And there is the spiritual food that feeds our spiritual soul. That is important. And for me, that is food. Okay. So if I'm not, it's a bit like maybe all of a sudden I'm going to say I'm going to have a rest from food. What's going to happen to me? I'm going to starve. So you can't. And I don't think, what do they call this new fasting? There's this new diet that intermittent fasting. It might be good. It might be good physically, but spiritually it doesn't work. No, I don't think there's such a thing as a spiritual rest, but there is such a thing as to be spiritually guided to do the right spiritual law for each person. Sometimes not having the right spiritual guidance can be detrimental to our spiritual life. We get excited and we say, okay, this Lent I'm going to do 100 matanyas every morning. And then I found myself doing the matanyas. But is that spiritually good for me? Is a question that I need to be very sure of. There's a beautiful story in the Desert Fathers of a monk, a novice monk, who was spiritually doing really well. And he was following his confession father's instructions and the spiritual law and everything. And then Satan appeared to him in the guise of an angel and said to him, "You have done so well. You've been qualified, and a chariot is going to come and pick you up and take you straight to heaven." So he went very happy, and he said to his confession father, "Guess what? An angel appeared to me and told me I'm going to ascend to heaven, and there's a chariot that's coming to pick me up." So his confession father said to him, No. That can't be an angel. That's definitely Satan in the guise." He got upset, and he started thinking to himself, "My confession father is jealous because I've managed to qualify and he hasn't. The angel came and told me I'm going to heaven. He didn't tell him I'm going to heaven." He went back to his cell and decided that he's not going to say anything to his confession father anymore, because he started thinking he's surpassed his confession father in spirituality. And lucky for him, his confession father was a good monk who kept on monitoring him until one day he decided to go out, and Abuna kept on following him. And yes, the chariot appeared, and yes, it came. And as it came, Abuna jumped and held onto the feet of his son, and the chariot just took his tunic. Obviously, the novice, the young monk, looked at his confession father and the old monk and said, "What have you done? I've missed my chance. I was going to heaven and I've missed my chance. And you've kept me here on earth because you're jealous." And the old monk looked at him and said to him, look up. And all he could see is the tunic, slowly coming down in the earth because the chariot disappeared. And he said to him, that was going to be your fate. Satan was only going to lift you up to let you go so that you fall to your death. And that wasn't going to be just earthly death. It was going to be eternal death for you. It is very, very important that we are spiritually guided. And this is why we have the spiritual fathers. And this is why it's very important to expose everything to him and say to him, these are my struggles. And these are the things I'm doing well in. And then he'll slowly give you spiritual exercises that won't allow pride to overcome you, won't allow ego to kill you, and at the same time are going to be spiritually beneficial for you, that they build you up. Not about volume, it's about consistency. Not about how much I pray or how much I read in the Bible. It's about actually praying every day, reading my Bible every day.
As we know, Buna, you guys are so busy. So what if we tend to feel like we are bothering the priest or our confession father?
Now, Habibi, bother as much as you like. There's no such thing. Every priest knows very well that there's a difficult verse in the book of Isaiah where it says to the priests, "I will require the blood of your congregation from your neck." So your salvation is tied to my salvation. So there's no priest that is going to be bothered. There is no priest that is going to be too busy. There is no priest that is going to say to you, "Go away." Okay? If you see a priest, hold on to him and say to him, "I want to sit with you now. Confession Father, Buna, you need to make time for me now." And one of the biggest things that's been bothering me in being, kind of distracted with other things than my own church is that I feel that sometimes I might be letting my congregation down in not being around and always being out. It's hard. Yes, but you find him, hold him. Tell him, "I need to see you today." There's no priest that will say no.
Let you take that one.
Okay. No, that's beautiful. Now, what are some in practical advice, some little spiritual things that we could start doing between things when we're busy at work, at lunch, and things like that? What are those small habits that we can build to actually lead to that deeper relationship with God?
Look, I think one of the most important things is, if you haven't had confession in a while, go and sit with your confession father. And prepare before you go.
What does that preparation look like?
That preparation means I need to have this honest sitting between me and myself and really be very honest. Where am I failing in my life? And where am I doing the right things? And write them down. or memorized.
Hmm.
And then go sit with your confession father and say to him, Abuna, today I want to live from here with a spiritual rule for me. Now, as a minimum, that spiritual rule should have your morning prayer every day. And that morning prayer can't be anywhere. Ideally, that needs to be you wake up, you stand next to your bed, or if you've got this beautiful prayer corner, stand in this prayer corner and you pray your morning prayer. And I promise you, it's 7 to 8 minutes. And if it's not, just stand the 7 to 8 minutes and leave. And begin every day that way. And end every day that way. So this is as a minimum. Your morning prayer, your 12th hour prayer. And in between, there's a beautiful prayer which is we call the arrow prayer. My Lord Jesus Christ, my good Savior, have mercy upon my soul and forgive me such and such sin. That can be prayed many times throughout the day. This is what I would say the minimum. Obviously, and reading, the Bible in a structured way. We're in Lent now. Reading the Gospels is ideal to prepare yourself for Holy Week. It doesn't have to be a lot again. Happy with 5 verses. But read the 5 verses and understand. And ask yourself, what is it that God is saying to me today? What out of these 5 or 10 or 12 verses or this chapter that I'm reading is God asking me to change in my life today? These are very small, practical things you can definitely do on a daily basis. But definitely sit with your confession father. Check what is it that you're doing with your service. Are you serving too much? Or are you not serving enough? Are you doing the right thing in your service? And it could be that you're carrying so many services, but you're not honest in any of those services. You might say to you, okay, let's just focus on one and be honest in them and really serve that service honestly.
And then Abuna, so what would you say to someone who they say, I'll get my spiritual life in check, but I have to do it once I finish school, or I'll go to retreat once I'm on holiday, once I get married, and then it just keeps moving forward and forward in life.
That's the devil of postponement. We always think that tomorrow is I'll have more time than today. And ideally in a world that is very busy, we can easily think that that's going to be the case. And this is why it's very, very important not to delay. The time is now. And the time I need to do things is now. If you don't have time today, you're not going to have time tomorrow. You're not going to have time forever. It is very, very important that I get my priorities right. God is important. He might not seem urgent. And he might not seem urgent because Satan comes and says to us, don't worry, most people live to the age of 80 or 90. At year 79, start your repentance. And he will accept you the same way he accepted the right-hand thief on the cross. I'm not saying God won't, but how do I know that you're going to live till 79? No one can guarantee that. And this is the problem with postponing. Postponing to tomorrow, postponing to next year, postponing to when I finish uni, postponing to when I have my kids grow up. And if you think school and uni are hard, imagine having to look after young children. If you keep postponing, you're never going to do it. The time is now. And if I can make it work today, I can make it work any day. If I can't make it work today, it's not going to work at all.
So should we be trying to remove busyness from our lives completely? Or how can we learn to manage that?
I think you definitely don't remove busyness out of your life. Keep busy as long as you are busy with constructive things. That is what's important. Busy with things that are not constructive, things that don't edify your life, that is what's dangerous. So, no, stay busy. Order your life, and order your life in having God first, then everything else. And you'll be amazed how when God is first, everything falls in place on its own, and falls in place so perfectly, and so kind of miraculously. He is amazing in the way he works when we allow him to work through our lives. So order your life and stay busy, but stay busy with the right things. It's good to be busy with work. It's good to be busy with university, It's good to be busy with your service. It is bad to be busy with things that are not going to be constructive in your life.
Fair enough. What's a small step a young person today who's feeling like very spiritually dry and like, you know, they haven't been really there and they haven't been doing much? What's a small step that they could take today, practically, or even this week, that can get them on the way?
Just start praying every morning. That is the smallest step we can take. Try and get yourself into a liturgy. The liturgy, I haven't said anything about the liturgy, but, everything starts at the liturgy. Everything starts at the altar. If you're really, really struggling, just write your own name. God, remember me, and put it on a little piece of paper and give it to Abuna and put it on the altar and attend the liturgy. And then hopefully, praying in the morning and attending a liturgy, you'll develop enough courage to sit down and expose everything in front of your confession father, and then put for yourself a spiritual regime. We are very good at creating diets today to lose weight and to put on. My son, I met a few people in the last service trip who are very protein kind. The protein is very important for muscle building. Put a spiritual routine for your spiritual life. Check what protein is good for you, okay? And the liturgy is one of those proteins. Your Bible is one of those proteins. Your fasting is unbelievable vitamins that you should be having all the time. They're all important aspects of that, and order that, and make sure you stick to it. Do not get out of that order. Discipline yourself. Fasting is all about discipline, and my spiritual life requires discipline. But by placing these fixed things in my life, hopefully I'll find myself growing spiritually, and as I grow spiritually, I'll see more defects and more things that I would like to fix in my life, and as I work on them, I will grow more, and hopefully we see that beautiful graph that leads us one day to be able to hear God's voice saying, "Come, you that are blessed by my Father, come and inherit the kingdom that has been prepared for you."
If we're doing everything right and then we end up becoming like that monk, should we just run to our confession father?
I hope we can end up like that monk, but be humble enough to understand, don't allow pride to take over. No matter what, Satan is very good. One of the beautiful things that St. Paul speaks about, he calls them the right hits and the left hits, and I don't know the English for it. I'm translating the Arabic. Darabat yaminiya or darabat shamiliya. So right kind of punches and left punches. You can think of it as you're in a boxing game. Satan has two kinds of punches that he punches a person with. The left punch is usually making us sin, making us, eat too much or get drunk or become addicted to something. These are left punches. These are negative things that we end up doing, falling into sins. But sometimes he actually has the right hook. That right hook is, you're so good. It makes you proud. You're going to become a saint. Oil is going to start dripping out of your hands. He makes you fall into pride, or fall into seeking vainglory, or fall into thinking that you are spiritually much, much more wiser or higher, or that is also just as dangerous. When I don't, monitor those things in my life, pride especially, and that's how Satan fell.
Just out of curiosity, Abuna, how did then the saints like Saint Marina, Saint Mary of Egypt, we got Saint Macarius, all the big monks, Saint Anthony, they were all by themselves. They didn't have a confession father for a long period of time. So how did they stop themselves from falling into pride?
It's very, very hard to say that didn't have a confession father. Saint Mary of Egypt confessed when she met Saint Zosima, and the account tells us more about her repentance and the amazing story of repentance. But there was there was work. St. Anthony had the angel that ministered to him, and we see that being told to us through the account. St. Macarius lived a communal life. St. Bochomius was the same. So most of the desert fathers had guides. And St. Anthony, for example, had so many monks that congregated around him because he was their spiritual guide. They all had guides. And it is very, very important to be guided. And for many of us, these saints are all also guides. And one of the important aspects of my spiritual life is creating a relationship with the saints. Now we started talking about Pope Carolus and how much I love Pope Carolus. There must be a relationship between you and that saint. Pope Carolus was a man of prayer. Everything that troubled him, he put it on the altar, and the altar took care of it. But it's very, very important for us to create relationships with those saints who can also be another guide for us. Their life, their story, their account is a guide for every one of us.
That's nice. Do you think sometimes we keep busy schedules because we think that's where our worth is? We forget that we're sojourners, and if so, how do we keep that in front of us the entire time?
Look, I truly think that it is becoming very, very busy is not something that we do by choice.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that this is, like I said, we are definitely in a battle, and that battle in today's day and age is a battle for time. And Satan goes out of his way to take time away from us. And he does that by placing other priorities ahead of God in our lives. He's very, very good at telling you and telling me that my health is important. He's very, very good at telling me that my welfare is important. He's very, very good at telling us that my children are more important. And he makes us prioritize all these things into our lives. At your age, the younger age, he tells you that your friends are so important. And by placing these priorities ahead of God, we become so busy with them, not realizing that we are harming our own selves. And then comes the idea that Alex was telling us about is I'll have time in the future. So add that to the mix. I find myself so busy, running around, helping people, doing things that the Bible tells me is good, sometimes serving, and become so busy with service. And again, I say to myself, well done, you're doing well, you're doing good. You're actually fulfilling the commandment. And I am doing so much, and I'm working, and yes, God was with Joseph, and he was a successful man, so I need to be successful. So again, I keep patting myself, but not realizing that the real relationship between me and God doesn't exist. And that's where the problem becomes. So definitely reevaluate your priorities in life. And by reevaluating that, make sure that God is a priority. If he's a priority and everything else is definitely important, but God comes first, then you are doing the right thing by being busy. And it is good to be busy because the busier you are, there's no idle time that is going to allow Satan to come and tempt you with other things.
Why do you think most of the youth are busy with other things rather than focusing on what we should be focusing on?
Because we're young. That's a beautiful thing about youth. You are so young. And being young, you have a lot of energy. You have a lot of talents. I used to hear that when I was young, and I used to think, they're telling us that to make us feel good about ourselves. But the reality is, Pope Joshua used to say, a church without youth is a church with no future. You are definitely the future of the church. And you can do so much today, so much more than even my generation, which is, I'd like to think, is not a very old generation, because there's probably two or three other generations still around. You can do so much. And Satan obviously tries to make sure that you're not doing what you should be doing. But being young and having a lot of energy and a lot of talents and a lot of abilities means that I can easily also get distracted. I get distracted by things that I may justify for myself. And we are very good at justifying. We're very good at justifying, my friend needs me. I must go there. But you haven't been to liturgy for the last 8 or 9 Sundays, but my friend only needs me on Sundays. And I can justify. And he has no one else to look after him. Don't justify. Try and make sure that you and your salvation comes first. Then everybody else. And that is what is important. And that is what sometimes we forget as youth, because we have so much energy. We think we can do so much and we expect so much from ourselves that we end up failing our own selves.
Yeah, I agree, Abuna. We feel like we're needed for everything. We feel like we have to be productive. Because when it comes to static, it's like you feel worthless. You know?
And you can do so much. And God has blessed you with so many talents. And I'd like for all of us to one day stand in front of God and say to him, here are the talents that you've given us, and this is the investment, the return that we've made with these talents. Very, very important. But again, we must prioritize God first. If we don't prioritize him, yes, there is the issue of laziness where we just end up burying talents, saying this is too hard, not going to bother. Every time I do it, people criticize me. People do this, people do that. The church is full of, sinners, and I don't want to be surrounded by sinners, and they're all hypocrites, and church is a hospital. It's not a perfect world, and there are always going to be good people and bad people, even in the church. So don't get dismayed, and don't use that as an excuse to be lazy. Don't use that as an excuse to hide your talents. Don't use that as an excuse not to invest those talents into the work of God.
That's nice. I want to bring up silence. Is it important? And if it is, why do we always struggle with it as young people? Why does it make us uncomfortable sometimes?
Silence makes us uncomfortable because we have gotten used to a very noisy world. Silence makes us uncomfortable because everything around us at the moment gets attention by making a lot of noise. Silence becomes very, very uncomfortable because the world forgot what silence is. And this is why it's important for us to silence ourselves in that room, to sit with myself and to allow my heart to speak. But, we need to understand that the world is not going to approve everything we do. The world is always going to fight against the way we live. In the world, you will have tribulations, is what Christ promised us. But be of good cheer, I have overcome the world. And therefore, the world is not going to like silence. The world doesn't like prayer. The world doesn't like fasting. The world doesn't like service. The world doesn't like, doing good. The world skews what true happiness is. The world skews what true joy is. And it lies to us. It tells us that happiness is in being free. Yet all those that are free are in reality not free. They're in chains, and they're in the chains of addiction. If it's alcohol as a type of freedom that we think, I'll be free if I go drink with my friends, but your friends are not free because they have to go drink every Sunday or every Friday night. And if they don't drink, they have a problem. And then it starts every Friday. Before you know it, they're drinking every day. And before you know it, they have a problem with alcohol. They can't stop drinking. And the world tells you that that's true freedom. It's not true freedom. And the same with other things. So the world is not going to like silence.
Well, thank you for having us on, Abuna. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for coming all the way here and for everything that you do. It was a pleasure to talk to you, and it was a blessing. And I hope I didn't say anything that is out of line.
Us as well, Abuna.
May the Lord bless your service, and may the Lord be with you always and protect you.
Thank you.
And I hope you can stay busy all the time.
Always.
Thank you, Abuna.
God bless you. Glory be to God.